You know, sometimes a single business deal can tell you everything you need to know about the future of an entire global industry. And that's exactly what's happening in Brazil right now. One company is making a massive bet that could literally change how food gets to your dinner plate. Let's break it down.
We're going to start by looking at a decision by a major player in the Brazilian beef world to expand its operations by an absolutely staggering amount. And trust me, this isn't just a little bit of growth. This is a huge strategic leap that tells us so much about where the global food supply chain is headed.
Okay, the headline number you need to remember is 60%. That is the massive increase in annual beef production that one processor, a company called Frigol, is gunning for. And they're not planning to do this over the next 10 years. They want to hit this target by 2026. In an industry this big, that kind of speed is pretty much unheard of.
So what does a 60% jump actually look like on the ground? Well, it means going from processing about 650,000 cattle in 2025 to over 1 million just one single year later. Think about that. This is not a small tweak. It's a fundamental move to completely remake what they're capable of.
And this, right here, is the real takeaway. This move isn't just about one company getting bigger for the sake of it. No, it's a huge signal of a major shift in how global agribusiness works. It's all about being smarter, faster, and way more flexible to keep up with the world's growing appetite.
So that brings up a really big question, right? How in the world does a company boost its capacity by 60% that fast? The answer is actually pretty brilliant. Frigol is using this innovative playbook that lets them sidestep the single biggest obstacle to growth: construction. They're scaling up without building a single new thing.
The model they're using is called collaborative infrastructure. But let's make that simpler. Think of it like this. Instead of spending years and a ton of money building your own giant industrial kitchen from scratch, you partner with existing kitchens that already have the space and equipment. You're just leveraging what's already out there.
So you really have two paths to grow. The old way, building a new plant, is super expensive and takes forever. But this new partnership model, it's a total game changer. You're looking at way lower upfront costs, much faster implementation, and you get access to more production almost immediately.
And here's how it works in the real world. Frigol, they focus on what they do best: finding the cattle and managing all the international sales and exports. Meanwhile, their new partners, companies called DistriBoi and RioBeef, they handle the actual processing. It's a really clever division of labor where everybody sticks to their strengths.
Okay, now let's zoom in a bit, because where all this is happening is just as important as how it's happening. The location is totally strategic. We are heading to a state in Brazil called Rondônia.
It is definitely not a coincidence that all three of the processing plants in this deal are in this one state, Rondônia. This area, which is in Brazil's western Amazon region, is being intentionally turned into a powerhouse, a critical hub for the entire country's beef industry.
So, why Rondônia? What makes it the perfect spot? Well, there are a few really good reasons. First off, the cattle are already there. It's a huge cattle-producing state. That proximity just makes logistics way easier and cheaper. On top of that, the state is being built up as a strategic base specifically for processing beef that's headed for the export market. It's the perfect launch pad.
All right, so we've got the what, the how, and the where. But that leaves the biggest question of all, the why. And to understand that, we need to zoom way out and look at the powerful global forces that are making this whole thing happen. Which leads us to the million-dollar question. Or in this case, the billion real question. With an expansion this massive, who on earth is expected to buy all of this beef?
Well, the answer really boils down to two global giants. You've got massive continued demand for protein coming from China. And at the same time, the United States is still a huge and very reliable market for Brazilian beef. This entire expansion is a calculated move to feed that growing global appetite.
And if you look at the money side of things, it gets even crazier. The company expects its revenue to leap from 4.3 billion reais in 2025 to almost 7 billion reais in 2026. That is an absolutely incredible return in a single year, all from this one strategic partnership.
Now, to make all this happen, Frigol is investing 250 million reais. That's about 48 million US dollars. But get this, they expect to make back that entire investment in roughly 1 year. That tells you everything about how certain they are that the demand is real and it's not going anywhere.
Okay, so let's put all the pieces together. What does one company's partnership deal in Brazil really mean for the bigger picture? For the future of how we all get our food?
You know, one of the reports on this whole deal really just nailed it. It explained that as the world demands more protein, the companies that are going to win are the ones creating flexible production networks capable of rapidly scaling supply. In other words, agility is the new scale. It's not just about being big, it's about being fast.
And that right there signals a fundamental shift. The old way of doing things, building massive, slow-moving factories, that's being replaced. The future belongs to these agile, collaborative networks that can change and adapt on the fly. That is the real lesson behind Frigol's billion-head bet.
And that leaves us with one final, very big question to chew on. This partnership model is clearly efficient, it's profitable, and it's great for scaling up to meet demand. But as the world's population continues to climb, is this the kind of model that can truly sustainably feed the planet for decades to come? That's the real question.